Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogstye. Sorry, I hit that a little loud there.
Also, you had some fake radio dude voice. What was that about?
Well, it's getting cold, so my voice is getting a little deeper.
Man, it was in the 50s here. It's like bundle up.
Yeah, we're starting to. Fall is upon us now that we're in November.
Yes, it is.
We don't like it when it's below 70 in South Texas.
No, you guys, people do not understand how bad Southerners are at dealing with cold, and
If I have
actually
to-
bad at heat too, for that matter.
Well,
But
no,
that's-
we're okay with heat. I mean, it's
you're okay with heat if you have air conditioning.
I'm okay with heat. Period. If I have to
There's-
wear long pants, it's a bad day. That's the way I look at it.
There's no way you're okay with Texas heat. I'm sorry. Texas heat is probably one of the worst in the country.
I'm totally fine
It's
with
brutal.
it. I'm totally fine with it.
It is very humid though, which makes it brutal.
Extremely humid. I hate
You
it.
guys are from the Northeast. I understand. I'm fine. I'd much rather have that than freezing cold weather. And I've lived everywhere. Y'all know
You have
this.
lived everywhere.
I've lived in cold, hot, humid, dry. I've lived everywhere, and I don't mind the heat.
Although I would say at least the major places you grew up, more hot than cold, right? Like just the ones I know you've mentioned over the years.
Well, I haven't ever given you the whole history. I don't want to give the whole history on
That's
the air
fair.
necessarily, but I have lived in
Yes.
very cold and very hot. Yes, both.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show, everybody.
Yes.
It is Alex, Steve, and Dave. You've heard us all already talking, so I don't know if I need to introduce us because we've just been jabbering. I hope you guys had a good Halloween. We
I
actually
passed
had
out a
kids
lot of
show up to my
candy.
house for the first time in like 2 years, which was wild.
Were they scared and did they run from gunshots?
No, they were not scared. They were adorable. They were all like under 5, which is the best
Were their
age.
parents like taking cover, diving from cover in Southeast DC?
No, I'm pretty sure one of the parents was already drunk, but that's a different thing, you know.
Way to
Well,
take
alls
care
I
of your
know-
kid, parent.
All I know is up here, every year seems to get less and less and less involvement up here. It's more of the whole trunk or treat thing that people seem to do anymore now. It's not like the 80s when it's like all the parents were out handing out candy and they watched, and all the houses were responsible watching all the kids. They were just running across the yard, across the street, and you didn't have to worry about anything or nothing at all. And now it's like they're too worried about putting their kids outside to do anything because they're afraid of either being taken or shot or something or whatever. It's crazy.
We have a normal, in my neighborhood, there's a normal trick-or-treating regiment. The kids walk around, and I pass candy out from the door, and, it was okay.
What were
It
you
was
giving
good. I
out,
enjoyed
Steve? What were you giving out?
I always buy the good stuff. I don't give up crappy candy. I had
Yeah,
Reese's, Snickers, and like a mix of,
Nice.
I don't know, stuff. But,
Everything
Highlight
you
was
don't
Reese's.
eat.
I don't eat
Everything
any
you
of
don't
it.
eat.
I didn't
Yeah.
eat any of it. Yeah, I didn't.
We
eat a single
went
bite of it.
full-size candy bars because we know we only are going to get a handful of kids anyway, so might as well make it worth their
See,
time.
usually I
Yeah.
I overestimate and end up with a pile of extra. I was proud of myself. I hit it exactly on the nose. I had 5 pieces of candy left by the end of the day,
Nice.
end of the night.
Nice. So I'll tell a story about work, and I can't name any names because obviously,
Please don't.
yes, but they do a thing at work every year where they bring kids from one of the local elementary schools in, read them stories, do Halloween things with the kids. One of the senior political people was, reading stories like, all right, kids, now what are some things we can do to be safe on Halloween? And I think these kids are probably first, second grade. One kid shouts, be an individual.
What?
This is the opposite of safe things that you can.
A child said that? Shouted
Yeah,
that
that
out?
was his safety tip for his fellow classmates.
Like, where did that come from?
I don't know.
Be an
Parents.
individual.
Wow.
Parenting, right?
And for one thing, child, that's not a good safety tip.
No, this is a very bad safety tip.
I mean, I applaud individualism. It has nothing to do with safety.
Right.
And arguably that, if nothing else, that may be less safe if you're not in a group.
No. Stay in
From
your
the
group
mouth
when
of
you were
babes,
trick-or-treating
you know?
children. That would be my advice.
Oh man.
I get that the era that we all grew up in where kids just went on their own is long gone. Like, parents probably go with the kids up until
Oh,
they
I
stop.
walked my kids around. I didn't let them walk
Yeah,
around.
but
by
when
themselves.
you grew up,
I'm talking
when
about,
I
I'm talking
grew
about
up,
you and I grew up.
Yeah. When all of
Well,
us grew up.
see, I was on an Air Force base, so there's no security issues on Air Force bases.
Sure.
Well,
But even so.
No, I walked around by myself for the most
Yeah.
part.
Right.
yeah, because
exactly.
I mean, because when I was a kid, I walked across the other neighborhoods. I mean, we were like 3 townships away, and then making
Right.
a circle back all the way through, and then coming back. I mean, nowadays it's just like, okay, go down that block. Don't go any further because I can't see you.
Well, I mean,
and
and
so
you were in
like
the
when you were
hellscape of Philadelphia too. That's
Well,
really taking your life in your hands.
I'm in a place, as I mentioned before, in Delco. So there's a lot of different things that happen in this area that most people just don't understand. But
Sure.
it's a Delcoism. That's all it is for us.
and granted, we're talking about like when you get a little older. When you're like a little
Yeah.
kid, you're not going past your street anyway, because
Right. No,
No,
yeah.
I'm not
bedtime.
talking about when I was 5.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no. Right.
Yeah.
But
Like
for
10,
me,
11.
I was
Sure.
always in military housing, so that's
Right.
just a different vibe, and nobody's worried about safety in military
Right.
housing.
But I just thought that was the most adorable wrong answer to shout out right at the top.
So
It's
this is
always
a,
the most
a
wrong kid who shouts out the answer.
so this is a political leader who was doing a political person who's doing this.
Well, it's just a cute thing. We've done it every year. It
Mm.
doesn't matter which party's in there. They always love to have kids come in. And
that was
like,
Joe Biden, wasn't it? Just admit it.
It was not Joe Biden.
He would have
Well,
fallen asleep. He wouldn't have been able to got through it. So it clearly
Well,
wasn't Joe.
He only
Well, the
hands
tip
out
was he
candy
would
in
have
the
been
White House. I'm not
sniffing
allowed
the
in the
kids
White House.
anyway.
Yeah, I know. If he had said this political leader sniffed the hair of a little girl, then yes,
Yeah,
we would have
right.
known who it was.
Yes.
No comment on
Oh,
that.
you know what?
so.
Speaking of that, I don't know if you guys saw this video, but it was hilarious. There was this little kid who dressed up as Joe Biden with security detail, and he would walk around, and like if he goes, when he gets to the steps, he would trip up the steps purposely.
That's
then-
hilarious.
And then as he was walking down the street, all of a sudden, the Biden character would kind of just stop and just like look up around and just kind of turn and start wandering off, and they had to pull him back over. And it was hilarious. I don't care what side. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. That's hilarious.
Oh, that's funny. But how long did his parents have to coach him on how to do this act, though?
Well, you just get Grandpa to do his Gerald Ford impression. And there you go. Let's be honest. Presidents tripping, not a new thing. Gerald Ford,
Mhm.
Joe
Bush
Biden
Sr.,
almost dying
Joe Biden.
tripping is a new thing.
Eh.
None of them have tripped like Joe Biden. Even Gerald Ford only tripped a couple times.
I mean, didn't Bush Sr. fall down Air Force One stairs at one point?
I don't remember that.
He
H.W. Bush you're talking about?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
remember that.
yes, Bush
I don't
Sr.
I don't remember. I don't remember that either. I'm not sure.
A lot of them trip. They trip a lot. They're not used to stairs. Are a young man's game, and president. is
Yeah,
an old
but I
man's
mean,
game.
Gramps is 81 years old. I mean, he's
Yeah, I know.
not. You shouldn't. Guys like that need to be in hospice care, not
Wow,
traveling around the world.
Hospice. I mean, people get in their hundreds now, especially rich people.
Yeah, he has laundered a lot of money. He has got tons of money in various unmarked bank accounts.
Yeah, you never see rich people die young unless it's drugs. So one thing that Dave wanted to talk about, because I mentioned it on Twitter, I've been going through an ordeal with my fridge. We had to replace our fridge. We are 0-3 in getting a working fridge from Lowe's.
What?
First one came in, gouges all over the side, like it looked like the forklift had hit it head on. Second one, motor doesn't work. That's the one that's sitting in our base. It works enough where at least it keeps the food cool, but like the water dispenser doesn't work. It sounds like a lawnmower.
How is it possible that Lowe's doesn't do any form of quality control whatsoever?
They don't. It's
I'm
amazing.
not saying you're wrong. I mean, just how is that possible that they don't?
And that's the crazy part because we've had over the years a couple fridges, some washers, dryers, and everything delivered from Lowe's, and the people, the third party organization had to deliver and everything, the movers. And if all that stuff ever moved, the only issue we've ever had was that they dinged the side of one of our refrigerators, but how it sat inside, you never saw it. Outside of that, it was like everything was taken care of. They were gentle, easy, set it up for me, everything. And here, Alex, he's going 3 in a row, and it's like a disaster.
Yeah, I would have lived with the dents if they were just on the side, but it was on the front
Right.
of a new
Well,
frame.
there's one thing to
Yeah.
have a scratch or a dent, another thing to have it look like a forklift ran into it. That's
Yeah.
not.
A whole
Exactly.
nother story.
And some of the damage was also where like the water main was coming in. That you don't want to risk that.
And plus,
No.
and plus, the third one was the best one of all, wasn't it? Where it was like it was just almost completely all busted down or something like that. You said
No, that was the first one. That
That
I
was the
didn't see.
first one,
The third
okay.
one was today. I was at work. Dora just said they didn't even take it off the truck. It was bad enough.
Why don't they look at it before they put it on the truck?
Like Dave was saying, the people who put it on the truck are just like independent people. Lowe's
Yeah.
should be doing it at the warehouse.
Well, I get it.
Yeah.
They have independent contractors do delivery and this installation stuff, but
Right.
Lowe's should look at it. Somebody
they should.
purchased this refrigerator for a lot of money, at least by normal person standards. Let's
Right.
check it out before we dump it onto the installation crew.
Absolutely. In my world of AV, that's what you do with any project.
So you need to demand the installation feedback after all this heartache.
We're already getting that back.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're getting that back. They're actually, because they ran out of this model, all of them are busted up. They're giving us a higher grade model for no cost added. So that's, there's some good things coming out of
Gee,
it.
thanks,
some
Lowe's.
perks out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're moving up from a Frigidaire to a Whirlpool. Exciting times in the Alex household.
Well, but are any of those going to work? There's the question.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
If they don't,
for at least 5 years.
If you hear about the Lowe's warehouse in Maryland burning down, that means I didn't get
no, it's Alex.
Yeah.
We went 0-4 on fridges, and I had enough.
You're going to have like coolers, full of ice or something at some point.
Oh yeah. Well, we have the coolers just because when you're switching out the fridge, you got to be ready for it. So.
Yeah, you got to burn it down just like what Washington's been doing.
Yeah. My fridge ordeal is a metaphor for Washington's defensive line is what's going on here. I'll tell you what. That was like a weird attempt at a bad Dennis Miller impression. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what you were trying to go for there. It wasn't really
I don't know
obvious.
either. I don't know either. So yeah, let's talk about that because guys, the rebuild is on. We don't have music for the rebuild. There's no rebuild.
Do you want me to write some music? I'm not doing it tonight.
No.
I'm not doing it tonight.
Yeah, but is it really a rebuild though? It's not like we were a team at a high level that's been at that level for years, and now we're aged out and we got to reconstruct it. We've always been mediocre to bad. So if anything, we're
frankly, this is a house that's
continuing
on fire,
to
and we
build.
just threw a canister of lighter fluid in just to see
no,
what would happen.
It is a rebuild, okay? Because
No, I know it
the
is.
team
It's
is
just-
built. It's just not it's a crappy house. It's a house in
Right.
Philadelphia, is what it is. It's a crappy house.
It's a house up by where it's the house I lived in college up by Temple, Dave. That's the house it is.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not sure it's that bad.
But yeah, I don't think I was really shocked that they traded either one of them, to be honest.
Much less both.
Yeah, much less both. And I definitely would have traded Chase Young before Montez Sweat if I was going to keep one or the other. But I do think trading those two guys in particular is the most obvious red light signal ever that, as you said, Alex, the rebuild is on. You don't do that if you're keeping the team together.
Yeah.
So everybody's on notice. And I would assume the players aren't dumb either and they understand this. It's you don't just play out the string because you are going to be somewhere else.
Well, I think that is definitely the case. I think, we also heard. So let's go over what happened. They traded Montez Sweat. They got a second-round pick from Chicago, which is going to basically be like the 33rd through 36th pick in the draft. It's a very high pick.
Mhm.
By the way, I don't know if you saw this, Steve, because we know you don't follow everything that goes on Twitter. Montez Sweat isn't committing to re-signing with Chicago either.
Oh, I didn't know that. So Chicago's stupid enough to make this trade, not even having a deal in place, huh?
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Which is funny as hell.
That
He
is.
could
Yeah.
he could very well be back in Washington next year.
Well, he's not going to do that.
No.
He's not coming back to the team that traded him.
No,
Well, I know
I
that,
highly doubt it, but it would be hilarious. It would.
Yeah.
Imagine if you fleeced him for a second-round pick and then he came back. That would.
That's happened in basketball and baseball. That's kind of
Oh,
things.
yeah. Yeah, it just has never happened in football.
No.
I know.
So look, I know very limited. I read some of the comments in our comment section and everything. People seem to be happy about that return on investment. But remember this: he was a first round pick.
Sure.
Trading him, especially for a second round pick, means he's a bust. Sorry, that's a bust. Okay, you lost value. You did not gain value from this player. I thought I don't know. I thought he was a decent defensive end, but if you're trading away a first round pick, you're choosing not to sign him, and you're getting a second round pick back, you're not getting 100% of what you put into him back. He's a bust.
Well, so I'll tell you why I disagree. You picked him 15th or 16th overall. I can't remember exactly.
Whatever,
somewhere around
something
there.
like that, yeah.
No, he was picked 26th.
Oh, 26.
Okay.
So, okay. Right. Haskins was the 15th or
Yes.
the mid-round guy.
Yeah,
so they drafted
moved back
Sweat
up for him.
late in the first round. They're getting an early second round. So let's say they're dropping back 10 spots equivalent after 5 years of the guy. The guy, half his career is over, and he's still worth, roughly. This is like selling a car that you bought for $30,000 and you still get $25,000 for it back after 10 years.
It's not a car though, man. I mean, he's
Players
entering
are a
the
lot more
prime
like
of his
cars than
career.
they are your houses.
He's in the prime of his career.
See,
in terms
I think the one aspect where I do tend to side a little more with Steve on this is the fact that going into his 5th year as a first round pick, he hasn't established himself as a guy that's going to get you double-digit sacks every year. He hasn't established himself as a guy that you have to, you have to design your offense around. You have to have a tight end on him with the tackle, or you got to keep the running back there to chip him or something like that. He hasn't built himself a reputation to be that kind of a player like
that I
you
would
see
agree.
with Bosa. You know what I mean?
He's never been a double-digit sack guy.
Right.
I agree with you there. But I just look at it as he's 27. He's probably NFL law of averages. He's maybe gonna play till he's 30, and then he'll probably be done. So you've gotten the bulk of his career in his rookie deal now, and plus the 5 years, 4.5 years.
I mean, you can talk yourself into whatever you want. That's you can view it however you want, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
And that's fine.
That's fine.
But if it was a successful pick, you'd get more from him.
Well, if it was a successful pick, you would kept him.
Or you could trade a successful pick, but you would, get more return. Instead, what they get? They got 1 second round pick, and the team will take the second round pick. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, yeah, it's a high pick, but so he's a bust.
It's much better if you weren't going to resign this Montez Sweat, and this is for Chase Young too. Getting something for them now is a lot better than saying, well, we'll get a comp pick in 2 years.
And a comp pick that may not even stick around, because if you sign a guy of equal value in terms of contract wise, you don't get that comp pick anyway. So I mean, in terms of
all sorts of little things in the comp formula that we don't know necessarily.
Sure. But when you look at that point of view, that perspective, and we actually got more value in return because we let him go free agency. So in that perspective, we did get more value for him. But in terms of his overall performance and where he's at and what he's done, in terms of relation to where he was drafted, and it's just that's where
I think I personally probably would have kept Sweat. I mean, I don't think it was really worth getting rid of him for a second round pick. That's just my view of it. But all the same, to be hypocritical about it, I also don't think I would have signed him to a big 5-year deal either. So maybe I'm being a hypocrite. I'm totally wrong. But.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see whatever happens with him in the offseason, like what kind of value he gets on the market. Is he a $15 million a year guy? Is he? Because, I think the concern here for a lot of people was, well, is Sweat going to want a max deal and is Young going to want a max deal? Because neither of them deserve to be top 5 paid defensive ends.
Especially Young.
Right.
Yeah, especially Young. Yeah, I agree with you there. But all right, so what is the value now for guys who were first round picks but haven't worked out? because the NFL is really terrible at figuring out that value for players.
Because our edge rushers, their value is going to be conflated anyway, so it's going
Right.
to be
Similar to
more than what
quarter-
it should be anyways.
Right.
And you have Montez Sweat, who's shown flashes and shown the ability to get to the quarterback and be disruptive. So of course he's going to be overvalued in the market anyway to begin with anyway. So if we didn't re-sign him, he was going to be signed to a big deal of like 16 or 15 to 17 million a year anyway by somebody else.
And I would argue, and Steve, you can tell me if I'm way off, but I would say if you really factor in their performance, these guys are probably sub $10 million a year defensive ends.
I think Sweat's going to get more than that.
I think he'll get more than that, but I don't know if he's worth more than that.
I think he's probably worth more than that just on potential. And if you put him in the right situation, he can perform well. Now, I don't know if the Bears are that situation because they're kind of a mess, themselves. But like a guy like Chase Young, you're going to pay more for him just because his draft status, he's got elite physical traits. He can go and bash the team and say, hey, it was a bad situation and pay me. But more than that, he's going to a team with Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
He's
going to a team where he is not the primary focus.
Chase Young could flourish because of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's situational. So, I mean, I think Chase, I think both of them can make a legitimate, decent argument for fairly large money just by blaming the situation they were in, highlighting their draft status, some of their accomplishments. I think they're going to they won't get top of the market money, but I think they'll get decent money. Yeah.
Right. But I think they're expecting top of the market money is the concern.
Well, they might be disappointed. Chase Young, especially. You want to dive into, just take a look at, I don't want to make a big issue of this, but think about for a minute Washington's draft history. That's why I'm scanning on if you see me, you two see me look at my phone.
Yeah.
2020, I'm just, Manuel Forbes, Jartavius Martin, round, 1 and 2 this year. Both of them look like busts so far, too early, but they don't look good.
Yeah.
Jahan Dotson, Phil Mathis. Phil Mathis looks like a bust. Jahan Dotson on the right track. So that's 1 of 4 that's.
And by the way, when we say on the right track, probably still not playing at a first round caliber, but
at least he looks like
Yeah.
In 2021, Jamin Davis, Sam Cosmi, bust.
Yeah.
In terms of draft status.
I would say Davis is similar, like he's a player. He's not.
Yeah, right. He's not worthy.
He's a player, but for what he was drafted for.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
In that respect, definitely a bust.
Yeah. 2020 Chase Young, massive bust. And no second round pick. Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace. We know what he was. Montez Sweat, bust. Mm-hmm. And then you go 2018, Daron Payne, that's a success. Darius Geis, humongous bust.
Huge bust.
John Allen, Ryan Anderson, bust. John Allen made it. Josh Doxson.
I forgot Ryan Anderson existed.
Josh Doxson, Sue Cravens, bust. So all and that's just through 2006. I'm going to quit reading all these. But point is, Washington's had a really horrible history at the top of the draft, and it continues
the last few years. I mean,
that was like 2 of them out of all of those I read. Like maybe 1 or 2 of them were successes.
And that is why,
2 definitely.
Right. And that is why I am completely adamant that that anyone and everyone is existing in this front office. Josh Harris has got to just say, hey, listen, thanks for your service. There's the door. Introduce a GM. He already brought in that analytics guy, which I'm pretty sure was probably whispering in his ear, talking about Sweat and Young.
It sounds like a lot more than whispering.
Right, exactly. So,
well, can we start right here, actually? Because I have to think that Josh Harris did this. I haven't kept up with it like you guys do on social
everything
media,
is pointing to he was a heavy hand, and his new analytics guy basically said you are better off getting trade value for these guys now than trying to re-sign them.
Well, that and, I mean, I know fans don't want to hear this, but you can't put all the money into the defensive line.
Right.
You cannot do that. You can't. That's just why you don't draft 4 number 1s in a row in one position group, because you can't spend all that money in one position group and have a balanced roster. You had to get rid of these guys.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, obviously. But, someone brought up a really interesting point that I read on Twitter, and I agree with it 100%. And I go back, I think of the great Bears defensive line, the early Ravens, the Eagles defensive line under Buddy Ryan. They had a couple really top-notch elite star players. Then they had these role guys that were the dogs of the defensive line, the guys that would do everything that these star players wouldn't do. And they basically got their hands dirty. Like for instance, Mike Golick on the line with Jerome Brown and Reggie White. Mike Golick did all the dirty work. I mean, he was the dog in that line, but the elite players, the actual impact players, were Jerome Brown and Reggie White.
And Golick never had a giant salary either by those days' standards,
Right. So having a line constructed where you have all elite guys across the board,
it doesn't work. You're right.
It doesn't really work, and I think that's what they're going, because they have their anchors in the center with Payne and Allen. I think Tuhill's a nice role player on the outside, and I think they could play around with that and get enough talent even if they bring in Burns in the offseason, someone like that or whatever. So
James Smith-Williams did well as Chase's replacement last
Absolutely,
year.
Yeah.
I think if you start doing a heavier rotation of some of these backups, even using some of these edge rushing linebackers that they have, like Hudson, in situational downs, it makes a lot more sense than we're just going to stick with the same four guys doing the same thing down in, down out.
I just think Washington put themselves in this position with their stupid draft strategies. This is, and I know everybody loves to say draft the best player, but that's a stupid draft strategy. I'm not saying go way out of the rankings, but you have to think about roster construction when you're doing this. That's why we on this show, and I know I can speak for Alex, Dave, you've only been through one draft of this, but he and I have always talked about draft the best player at a position of need. And the reason is you cannot stack a roster with 1 billion defensive ends all making humongous money. And it's a waste of time, waste of draft capital.
The big irony was the team had some weird record for a while, the year before they drafted John Allen, where they hadn't drafted a defensive lineman, I think in the first 4 rounds for like 15 seasons.
Now they're doing that with offensive line.
Yeah. And so they overcompensated, like Dan Snyder was tending to do. For some reason, this man loved to overcompensate for things. I'm not going to
wonder why he would overcompensate.
Yeah.
I can think of a few reasons.
Little tiny reasons.
Yeah. And then it gets us into another situation. It really always has to be best player at a position of need.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and that's why I didn't like Chase Young and from the jump, because you had Montez Sweat already. They needed linebackers. There were linebackers available. Maybe I was a fan of Simmons. Maybe I was wrong about him, but I mean, he hadn't panned out. But point is, there were other players in other positions they could have drafted. There were 2 or 3 other players that would have worked at 2 in 2020. But
like Andrew Thomas would have been another one.
There you go.
There you go. And look, we can always go through every draft and say, well, this guy panned out. We should have gone. I mean, and I think
I was a fan
any
of
fan knows that.
Simmons, everybody remembers that. And of course, he's been on a team that doesn't know how to use him either. A lot of this stuff is situational. But Chase Young's problem from the beginning was I always thought, this guy's LeVar Arrington 20 years later. The attitude, selfishness, goes off script, a lot of tons and tons of ability, is not a team guy. And that's what he played. That's what he proved to be.
Well, and the one thing that made even less sense to me is, at least the way I always like seeing defensive lines built, have one guy who's going to be that like run stuffing end, and then get another guy who's just a pure pass rusher. And the thing about Sweat and Young, neither of them were really elite pass rushing types. They were more balanced, better at stuffing the run, because they're both these big body guys who can take up space.
Chase Young was known as an elite pass rusher in college, so you got to be
in college. In the NFL, his type is not.
But that's what they were drafting him to be.
I know,
right?
But they might have been wrong. They were wrong, but I mean, that's
Yeah. And by the way, that said, both of them will probably get 10 sacks this year. They'll both
especially Chase Young playing with Nick Bosa. They can't double him.
Yeah, and they're going to put him on the right side finally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll help him.
Yeah.
So that'll be nothing but good for Chase Young. I think that'll work out well for him. I feel bad for Montez Sweat. I honestly do. And I don't think we mentioned it. Chase Young, by the way, the return, it's a conditional 3rd round pick we are going to get a comp pick from San Francisco because they're supposed to get a comp pick in the 3rd round. So we're talking about a late 3rd round pick. Really,
Washington might have gotten a comp pick from him just by letting him walk.
Yeah, but that would have been a year
right.
later.
Yeah.
And this one is assured
and
to
it's
be
guaranteed. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, it's a pretty low value. That's what you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. A lot of at least from what I've heard, a lot of people nationally are shocked that Chase Young has such a low like return. And everyone in DC is like, okay, yeah, makes perfect sense to us.
Oh, see, I mean, what they're not looking at is, you know, his inconsistency play on the field,
Right.
often injured. I mean, it's just, he's number 2 overall pick, but you know what? He
He's
hasn't
more of a
played
name.
that
Going
well.
up to training or to voluntary workouts and stuff.
He's more of a name than he is performing.
exactly.
He always has been from the day one.
Yep.
Even in his rookie year, he won Rookie of the Year. But I think it was kind of a down year for defenders that year, to be honest.
Well, it wasn't anything special, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah. So
Is this the signal that the rebuild is on? You know, I think it is.
Well, I think it is. And, you know, I sent this out there. I think I was talking to Mark Bullock on Twitter. You know, some people were saying, well, you should have kept one or the other. We're going to have a new coach next year, right?
Yes.
All likelihood. Who knows what scheme he's going to want to run? 3-4, 4-3. Let's say you get somebody who wants to switch up and go to a more 3-4 look. Chase Young and Montez Sweat don't fit in a 3-4.
They're not 3-4 guys. No.
Right. So trading them makes even more sense if that happens.
Well, you don't know if it is going to happen, though.
We don't. But I'm just saying, like, there are those things. You can put Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen in a 34 look because that's what they came in here to play anyway. Like, you can do that with defensive tackles. They can move around.
Am I the only one that's noticed John Allen hasn't done much all year?
I have noticed he's been pretty quiet all year.
No, he's been pretty quiet most of the year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I will say though is I think what Josh Harris did right now was, I mean, granted the draft pick compensation, you can argue, debate whether it was enough or whatever. But what he did, he made this team far more enticing for a new coach and new GM to come in, having 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. You have what could potentially be a quarterback, which we'll find out by the end of the year. That could be a guy you could build around. But if you can, and if he's not the guy, now you have these extra picks, these day 2 picks, along with your first round pick, if you're not drafting high enough as it is already, to move up and get that franchise quarterback that the new GM or the new coach may want. So now you have that flexibility. So they can come in and look at it. So Sam Howell played well, but did he play well enough? They can evaluate that, and they can make that decision now because they have no contract to worry about on Sam Howell. So they can just move on freely. I think in terms of what Josh Harris did for this team going forward, I think was very enticing in the market to bring in pretty much whoever he wants. So
well, they really have 3 guys on big contracts.
Yes.
Which is Terry McLaurin, John Allen, Deron Payne. You know, the rest of them, even like Kendall Fuller, you can get rid of him. You know, they're kind of locked into those 3 guys.
Well,
and
isn't
I think
Fuller in the last year of his deal?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, Fuller's on a big number, but, you know, you're not locked into Fuller. So, I mean, you're locked into those 3 guys to one extent or another. But those are guys you probably want to have. But we'll give John Allen the benefit of the doubt for now.
They
I got
have actually performed up to their contract, generally.
Yeah, I got newsflash for everybody. Look, if Washington ends up with a really high draft pick, they're drafting like
quarterback.
They're going quarterback. No matter what you guys think of Sam Howell, you may love him, hate him. And I would say this, so yes, he's performed well, but like Kirk Cousins performed well for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there have been other quarterbacks that the fan base has been excited about. Does not mean that this guy is ready to be a franchise quarterback and some totally new GM, totally new coach is just going to sign up for him. Maybe they will, but that is not guaranteed in any capacity, especially if they have a high draft pick.
And the beauty of that too is that they have a high draft pick and Sam Howell plays well the rest of the year. You're going to have a team that needs a quarterback on the back end of the draft or drafting late that would lick their chops over like someone like Sam Howell, and you might be able to get a couple mid-round picks for him, you know, something like that.
That's an option. I would also say, if you're a traditional team builder type, having a Sam Howell here for 2 more years for a new coach and saying you can draft your quarterback in the first round, but this gives you some flexibility on letting him sit and develop without, throwing him to the wolves is also a good thing to have on the table. It gives you a lot of versatility.
And also I think we need to say that I don't think Washington's going to be so bad that they're going to be able to get like Caleb Williams.
No.
They're not going to be at that level unless they trade it up
Williams
to get him.
is going to the Bears because they have the number 1 and 2 pick right now.
Yeah, right. Washington have to trade up to get him.
Yeah.
So they're not at that level. But I mean, if they could they're in the top 10 and they can get another quarterback. I mean,
there's 2 or 3 more first round picks. It looks like
there are
at quarterback this year.
Yeah,
it's looking.
But
like
I think everybody's getting ahead of themselves. So.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
The last thing on quarterbacks, and then we'll talk about the games. The only other guy that Washington almost traded was Jacoby Brissett. Supposedly, they were offered a 6th round pick for him. But they said they weren't, and I appreciate this. They said they didn't want to let him go for anything lower than a 3rd round pick. So they basically said, this is if someone offers you a 3rd for Jacoby Brissett, okay, take it. I don't blame anybody for that. That's
right.
On what we talked about earlier, that's a very good return for a free agent 30-something quarterback. But yeah, don't let them go for peanuts.
They need a quarterback. Yeah. You guys didn't, Alex, you disagreed with me last week when we talked about this with Jake Fromm, but they need, in my view, a guy like Jacoby Brissett on the roster. You have to have a fail-safe. And so, if they get a high enough pick offer, sure, grab it. But for 6th round pick, no, you got to.
Yeah. I wouldn't have traded him for a 6. I was hoping someone would make a crazy offer for him, though. If someone makes you a stupid 3rd round pick offer, Steve, I'm sorry, you don't need him that much.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, if somebody offers me a '59 Les Paul for $500, I'm going to buy it. You know,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll add just one quick note when it comes to the quarterback position with Sam Howell. For those who say Sam Howell is the guy, and as people say he is not the guy, you know what? Relax. We got 9 more games to go. Let it play out and see what we have. I mean, it's not like we're going to the Super Bowl where we have to make this. Just stop. Just stop. Quit rushing it. Let him do his thing, and let's see and evaluate him afterwards. Just
imagine
calm down,
the
everybody.
Voice of reason.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it nice to hear?
There's a lot to like there. There's a lot of potential, a lot to like. There's also still concerns, but that's normal for a quarterback at this point. So that's fine.
And he may not fit in the next coach's scheme at all.
He might not.
Sure.
He might, but also I'm hoping if we get a new coach, he's a good enough coach to know you build a scheme around the players, not you have to fit to my hole.
I would like, because one thing I did notice in scanning Twitter a little bit was that people are hung up on predicting the new coach and all of this.
I mean, I put something out there.
I know you did. I was really thinking of you. Don't do that, okay?
Yeah.
The proper way to do this is for the owner to hire a GM and then let the GM to decide. I don't even want to speculate. If that was my team, I wouldn't want to speculate in this situation because I'm more kind of a neutral third observer here a little bit. Figure out who the GM is first. Let's predict that.
I ask people to speculate on the GM, but Steve, people are not smart enough to do that. So.
No, probably not. And I don't even have any names right now either. But I mean,
I don't have many. But I'll be honest. Just as a fan, I am starting to browse the internet, seeing who's the next potential great GMs out there.
Well, Dave's been touting the guy from Philadelphia for a year now.
That's Dave's
GM, Alec Calaby. Yes.
Yeah. Dave's got a guy. I've seen some talk about the guys in San Francisco who are like the assistant GMs there. There are some names out there that are interesting.
I got a guy.
I got a guy.
Yeah,
you got a problem?
You got a problem? I got a guy.
And the one thing that we could even hope for is that if Eric Bieniemy goes somewhere else, that he falls in love enough with Sam Howell, and that team needs a quarterback, and they turn around and say, well, we want to offer you a first-round pick for Sam Howell because Eric Bieniemy loves him that much.
I just think the new owner is going to want to completely rebuild the thing in his own image, new organization, new start, new players. The group now isn't working. Burn the whole thing down. Keep Terry McLaurin.
Even if
the rest of them can go.
Even if they're 50-50 on Howell, it's worth keeping a 50-50 shot around at quarterback.
Unless they end up with like a Caleb Williams or whoever.
Yeah, sure. All
Because
right,
they need somebody to market the team around too.
They
by
definitely.
the way.
Oh yeah, love Terry. You can't really market around a wide receiver,
Especially with his personality. He's not flashy,
No,
which I
right.
like that. I admire him for it, but
right.
he's not a guy.
Well,
you're
we all
gonna...
want an Art Monk. We're Washington fans at the
Right.
end, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's quickly talk about the Philly game last week.
Oh boy.
I don't often do this, but honestly, it was a terribly refed game, in my opinion, and I think the refs actually kind of determined the outcome quite a bit in that one, which doesn't always happen, but it happened. There were 4 or 5 calls where I noticed the refs really were like, "Oh, there's a hold," and they would show
Are
the
you
replay.
accusing them of being corrupt, or are you saying they missed calls?
I'm saying that
Just
I
say
don't know if
yes.
it's corrupt.
Because one thing is reasonable and one thing is not reasonable.
Right.
I'll leave
I
it to
think
you to
that
figure
they
out which one.
overcalled some things. Not missed calls, Steve, but like they called like a chip block on the tight end when he wasn't even in the play.
You didn't
He
answer the
missed
question
guy.
though. You didn't answer the question.
I will never say anyone's corrupt unless there's proof of corruption.
Are you
I'm not one of these people
putting
who
a
thinks that
hypothesis out
they're
there
actually trying to influence the point spread. No.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. So
Yeah.
no, you just think maybe they had a bad game. I thought the Logan Thomas chip block thing was a pretty weak call.
Yeah,
I
it was
think
horrible.
the
Horrible.
Devontae Smith catch was obviously not a catch.
Obviously not. And then the weird sequence with, New York called in on the Jahan Dotson.
And that was made worse because the ref's mic was also out, and it was hard to see, what they were even talking about.
But then it seems like they forced Rivera to challenge it because it didn't make sense.
I think it seemed to me, because again, the mic was. It seemed to me what happened was they called it a catch, huddled, changed their mind. And then
New
ruled
York
it incomplete
told them
ruled it incomplete on the field. And by the way, it was incomplete. It was not a catch. So that was the correct call. So if Rivera had challenged it, he would have lost anyway. So I don't.
Well, Rivera supposedly did, although it didn't look like he did.
Yeah, I don't know.
They just said he's challenging it.
The bottom line is they got the call right after all of that. It was the Devontae Smith one that was just.
Oh yeah, that one was obviously a
that
drop.
was more obvious that it was not a catch than the Dotson one.
Yeah.
Now see that falls that right there. One of the few things that fell into what really burned me up. But I'm going to start with the fact that you're at the end of the second quarter, just over a minute left. You're 4th and 1. You go for it, which I 100% agree with. I agree with that 100%. You're in the Eagle territory. You have a quarterback that's mobile, quarterback tearing up the defense. There's nothing they can do to stop him. Granted, you're not really effective on the run, but you have Logan Thomas. They couldn't cover all game. But what do? You pick a play where you do an empty set, spread wide out, and then you bring in you have a freaking wide receiver, which you're not going to use as a running back behind Sam Howell. That just blew my mind. It's like
I didn't understand the play call.
No, it was awful play call.
Because if you wanted to throw the ball, you still have a jumbo set. You have a running back there with you. You still have Logan Thomas in that jumbo set. If you do a play action, they have to respect that run, regardless how effective or ineffective you've been. You have to respect that run. You can roll Sam Howell out, and then you bring Logan Thomas out in a route. And with how Sam Howell's been playing, couldn't cover Thomas.
Yeah.
I'll take the odds on making that first down.
I don't even need to see a jumbo set to be honest.
Most likely, don't score a touchdown.
Yeah, yes. I didn't even need to see it be a jumbo set. Just keep a running back there to give the threat of a run.
Right. Something.
As soon as you have 0 guys in the backfield, it means pass.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They will all just play pass. Great.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not going to read over all the stats and all that like we normally do because we're past that. But in this game was just not worth it. But I do want to highlight a couple things. Sam Howell, 39 of 52, 397 yards.
Too many passes.
Highlight
on
you
did
52.
great, but too many passes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 52. And then Brian Robinson is 10 for 59. Antonio Gibson 2 for 14. And De'Ami Brown was credited with a carry. I don't even remember that. 1 carry, 0 yards. I don't even know what that play was. So 12 called running plays. 12.
Yeah.
And he was and Howell was sacked once, so 53 pass attempts. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's no excuse for game plans like that.
No, it was not the best game.
That
plan.
is on Eric Bieniemy. You guys who want him as your coach and all that, that's no.
Now, again, I think Hal. I know he struggled in the end. Like those last 3 passes were really bad, but he threw 50 passes at that point. Of course, he's going to start throwing bad passes.
Well, I mean, that lad, the interception is a bad pass. He blew it.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't put him in that position where he's throwing 53 passes. 53 dropbacks.
Now I will say this. Like if you look at what the pace he's on for, like he's on a good pace numbers wise.
We'll see. We'll see how he ends up.
Right now, I did the math earlier today. He's on pace for 4,500 yards and 27 touchdowns, and I'm rounding those, to the nearest numbers. And then of course 17 interceptions, which is not great.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I would. The other thing I want to show, but I know we got to move on here because we talked a lot. But one thing though, for all you folks blaming the refs and everything in this game, and I'm not saying you two, but out there listening, just remember. The Eagles fumbled twice in the red zone. They fumbled on a tush push, which they have converted all of them all year. And they had a lightning strike of a fumble on inside the 1 yard line. That was a sure touchdown. Should have been a touchdown. They did another one in inside the 20. That would have been points.
Like inside the 10 even, I think.
Yeah,
inside
right.
Inside the 5.
So that was going to be at a minimum a field goal at least. And so Philadelphia really could have easily been up at 50 points.
Right.
Sure.
Now
they could have. Now that's for sure.
Now tell me if I'm wrong in this one assessment. But Ron Rivera has gotten zero feel for the game on that 4th and 4, where that Devontae Smith catch the drop. But when they call it a completion, it was in the 3rd quarter with 3 minutes left to go. They're down by 1 touchdown. But he's looking for a replay, but you see the Eagles offense is rushing up to the line.
Timeout.
Yeah.
You have no reason to think that they're in it. They need to do a 2-minute drill. They're only down by 1 score. It's only in the 3rd quarter. The feel for the game tells you either, okay, just throw the challenge flag or tell one of your players to go down like they're hurt or something or call a timeout.
Well, I mean, that's what Slay did in the overturned one for Dot. He faked an injury so that they could overturn it.
He faked an ankle injury and he walked off the field.
Right.
Yeah, but just no in-game awareness from Ron Rivera whatsoever.
Yeah, the most obvious thing is
feel
just call a timeout, Ron.
Right. Well, throw the flag. Even if you're going to be wrong, it's worth the risk.
Yeah, and play it was.
And that's easy to explain. They ask why you threw the flag. Well, you look at the situation, 3rd quarter, down by a touchdown. The Eagles are rushing up to the line. I can't see the replay, and they're rushing.
Half the guys on your sideline are pointing and saying it was dropped.
Right. Yes.
Like if you're not noticing that, hey, my 3 assistant coaches are on the field.
What about his replay staff though? Where are they? I mean, there's people who are supposed to be reviewing these plays, in the booth.
Well, I mean that is true too.
Terrible.
And Rivera's trying to look for it on the jumbotron, and
I think the guy's washed up. If you ask me.
With this though, don't forget the arms crossed.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it's very hard to throw a flag when your arms are in your armpits.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. He couldn't find the flag because he couldn't.
They're not. He doesn't keep a red flag in his pit.
He might.
That was mismanaged. There were a couple of mismanagement things. I will say overall though, I liked the game Bieniemy called much better. A lot more short intermediate passes. That was smart.
Which is like an extension of the run game pretty much in a way, yeah.
Yeah. Also, Sam Hell only took 1 sack because of it. Which I'm sorry, Steve. I know that really
I was so disappointed. I mean, come on, you guys can do better than that. It's going to be hard to hit 100 at this point. I'm really disappointed.
Right. Yeah, they still got a good shot at the record though. The record is there. It's in.
Yeah, but you want to go for the 100. That's.
I know. But what if they get into the mid-90s? That would still be impressive.
It's not the same. It's not the same. If you can date the supermodel, don't shoot for the regular girl.
Don't shoot for the regular model.
No.
Even though they're both out of your league.
Yeah.
Don't shh. Doesn't matter. If you have the chance to go get the supermodel, go get the supermodel.
Right.
And yes, this is a metaphor, people. Okay.
Yes. Yes, that is a metaphor. All right. Speaking of metaphors, let's talk about the Patriots. I don't know why that's.
I don't know how that's. Yeah. How is that? Okay.
I needed a transition.
It was just a terrible one. That's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a metaphor for the Patriots. It's a terrible transition. And they've been struggling the last few years now. The post Tom Brady Patriots. Does Washington have a shot here? Before the trades, I actually thought the defense could have a good day because if there's one thing that Montez Sweat and Chase Young were doing well with, it's quarterbacks who don't move. And, that's Mac Jones.
I can do you one better. Washington does have a shot in this. I actually think they're going to win this game.
Okay.
And we'll get to predictions later. But if you look at what New England does well and does badly.
Right.
Okay. So let's start with New England. I'm sorry. I lost my stat thing here. Okay. I got it.
Offense?
No, I got it. It was just. So New England is the second best Russian running defense in the league. They unbelievably, their opposing offenses are only averaging 3.4 yards on the ground, and that is a lot of attempts. Okay, that's not a small amount of attempts. So they're a really good rushing team, but passing is not the same at all. Passing, the average quarterback rating 93.1, which is bottom middle. Yeah, completion percentage is about the same. They're much less quality, and if you look at the players they have, none of them are anything special in the secondary. They are a horrible sacking team. They are terrible in terms of sacks. They are 31st, tied for 31st in sacks. So this is a game that Eric Bieniemy's offense is tailor-made for. He's not going to run the ball at this point. He just ain't going to. He just hates running back. Bieniemy hates running backs. They shouldn't be running this game.
Right.
So I think it plays in their hands, and I think Bill Belichick, the genius that he is, he's just suffering from a lack of talent. This roster that they have isn't very talented. Bill Belichick, the GM, has not done Bill Belichick, the coach, many favors over the years. And so I actually think, yes, Washington's a train wreck and all that right now, but all the stuff I've been saying, plus, again, they've been going on, off all year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they have a shot here to actually win a game. That's my thought.
I mean, they definitely have a shot. I just think that, it was my first reaction when thinking about the trades and, how that impacts the defense this week is, it's too bad. I feel like they could have feasted pretty well, both the edge rushers. And that's not to say Tuhill won't.
And
I think
don't forget about James Smith-Williams. He's going to be the starter.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who's going to start which side.
I don't know, but the two of them are going to be out there starting, I would think.
Yeah.
You could see a lot of KJ Henry, too. They're
good, yeah.
Yeah, very well could. That's going to be one of the interesting things to watch as a fan is just who gets what snaps. Because I think you start doing situational stuff. But that's a whole different discussion. So I think the defense... I think our offense will play well against this defense. I think you're right about that, Steve. But they can't do what they did versus the Giants. They underestimated the Giants, and they just started running, Hail Mary plays every damn down. Everyone just run a seam route all the time, and that doesn't work. They got to stick with what works for them, and that is short, intermediate pass game, quick release game, get the ball out of Sam's hand, play point guard. That's the offense that is effective for this team, regardless of the quality of defense they're playing.
Well, the one thing that plays against them is like what you said in your takeaways article is that they're up, down, up, down, up, down. Well, this is a down week if they go in their sequence of how they've been all year this year. But
do you really think this was an up game though against the
Eagles?
Defense? The defense did not have an up, but offense did. It was kind of a mixed bag a little bit.
Well, that's the thing, though. You're going against A.J. Brown. You're going against Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. That defense didn't stand a chance anyway. They kept up with them on the most part.
I agree with you. I mean,
Offensively.
it should be down this week,
Yeah.
but New England. Listen to this. So New England points scored this year: 20, 17, 15, 3-0, 17, 29, 17. And the 29 was against the Bills in week 7.
Yeah, that weird game of theirs.
Yeah, that's just a fluke. I mean, this team does not score points. And points against 25, 24, 10, 38, 34, 21, 25, 31.
Mhm.
And a lot of those teams are way better than Washington. Talking about the Bills and the Dolphins and the Cowboys and the Eagles, they've had a tough schedule. But teams have run up the score on the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
I think Washington has a chance here.
Well,
down week or no down week.
To talk about the other side of the ball, there's not a whole lot on that Patriots offense that should scare you either if you're Washington too much.
No.
Like their best receiver, looking at the numbers, is averaging 50 yards a game. That's not a whole lot. That's number 2 numbers for most teams.
Right.
They have 2 okay running backs, but let's be honest, Elliott's a shell of what he used to be. Zeke Elliott ate the original Zeke Elliott at this point.
Who's the guy to watch out for on this group?
Who do you think?
Hunter Henry, the
Hunter
tight
Henry?
end. Yep, Hunter Henry, the tight end. 34 targets, not a ton of receiver. It catches a ton of yards, but Washington has trouble with the tight ends. Their linebacker core is weak. Bill Belichick is smart. Hunter Henry can play. I actually think he's the one to watch out for here. Like Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, these guys are old. Kendrick Bourne is actually their leading receiver, but like you said, not a ton of yards. But I think Bill Belichick has the unique ability to spot weaknesses, and I think Hunter Henry's the guy to watch out for this week. And you're right, Zeke Elliott.
They have a second good tight end in Gesicki, so at least reputation-wise, he was supposed to be a decent tight end at one point.
He hadn't done much this year, but yeah.
No, not this year. I just remember that was one of those guys who, for years, you always heard Washington fans being like, "Oh, we should get him. Oh, we should get him." He was that guy.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah, but he fell apart last year in Miami, and I guess he's still not doing too great. Yeah, man, like this should be a win. You're probably right, but this team has been up and down, as Dave said. Right. So that's what makes it kind of a wild card. You never know. Are you going to get good Washington offense or bad Washington offense? Because you're just going to get a bad defense. We know that. Like
they could totally blow it, like they did against the Giants. They could.
Yeah.
Hey, it's all predicated on the fact that Bieniemy wants to keep running these short, quick routes and incorporating the screens like this, especially since he doesn't want to run the ball.
Right.
So you might as well keep that as part of the game plan. Bieniemy has to find an identity, and right now that identity, if it's going to be passing the ball 50 times a game, then fine, whatever, throw 50 times a game, but you have got to have that balance in terms of your short passing game and screen game, and the screen game has got to be a major component of that. You just can't have long developing routes every single game, and if he does that like he did against the Giants, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't see it's going to work.
Don't try and go sexy Rexy.
Exactly, right. So, but if you want to throw the ball 60 times a game and only run it 5 times, whatever. Do a lot of screen passes and do a lot of these little quick routes. Then at least that's an extension of your running game to a point. At least something.
Yeah, I know Steve's old school and doesn't like hearing that like screen passes are extensions of the running game.
I didn't say that. I never said that. I get it, but I mean they're not.
I mean, no. Well, no. I mean, you're right. It's not, but it's just the fact that if you're going to throw that much, you got to have those plays incorporated. If you're not going to run the ball for crying out loud. I mean, I would much rather run the ball anywhere from 20 to 25 times a game. I mean, but that's...
When you're trying to help out an offense like Washington's with a weak offensive line and a young quarterback, run the damn ball. I mean, it's not that complicated.
I mean, I've always, or not always, but I've been feeling like the problem is if Sam Howell's having a bad day, you don't have a running game to fall back on right now, which is the big problem.
Right. They need to put Chris Rodriguez in there.
If
should
they
we do
had that versus the Giants, they would have won. If they'd had any semblance of a decent running game.
Should we do predictions?
We're
running out of time here.
Yeah. All right. So predictions. That's fine. I'm going to go 21-14, Washington.
I'm going to do 24-10, Washington.
I'm going to do 26-13, Washington.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. I know we are running out of time, but I do want to bring up the crazy Josh McDaniels firing story that came out today. For those who don't know, McDaniels was fired as the head coach of the Raiders. And there was a story that came out, and I don't have in front of me who wrote it, but he got fired on Halloween. Josh McDaniels apparently showed up to the Raiders facility dressed as the owner of the team, Mark Davis. Which, by the way, don't dress up as your boss. Just some good advice.
Well, it depends on the boss, does it not?
It does, but even the best boss probably has a little bit of an ego. So, like, you're just playing with fire. Anyway, Mark Davis said he loved it. Decided to have P.F. Chang's with Josh McDaniels as like a, hey, this is great, and gave him a fortune cookie in which he had written, "You're fired." So he had a custom fortune cookie made to fire Josh McDaniels.
How can you get a custom fortune cookie made, I wonder?
Dude, if you're a billionaire, you can get a custom fortune cookie made.
This is a perfect example of why the Raiders are a mess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a fantastic example.
It sounds funny and stupid and all that. It's a dumb, ridiculous story.
It sounds like a sitcom.
Yeah, and I don't think I would make fun of my boss in public either, but some of them may find humor in it. I don't know, depending on the situation. But the idea that you're going to fire somebody in a serious business situation through a message in a fortune cookie and hot shot, get out.
Right.
That's just ridiculous. This is why the Raiders are a mess. It's a perfect example of why they're a mess.
Yes. Perfect example of why they're a mess, but also hilarious.
Yes, it is.
I mean, Josh, and also I think it's dumb to fire coaches in week 8. I mean, what's the point? What are you going to proving with this?
Well, former Washington Redskin is now the head coach, so we got that going.
Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, Antonio
He's the
Pierce.
head coach. I didn't see that part. Okay.
Yeah, he was named head coach now.
Another player Washington should have kept.
Yeah. Although London Fletcher replaced him, that wasn't a bad change. But I liked Pierce too back
Washington has a history of letting guys go they shouldn't let go.
Yeah. Pierce was a good guy. Because they fired not just McDaniels. I think they fired the offensive and defensive coordinator. Am I right about that?
In the middle of the season. Congratulations, Raiders.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it just came across that Davis is justifying the firing, saying that unfortunately, I had great hopes for Josh and Dave, but it just seemed we were going in the wrong direction.
I know why they're going in the wrong direction.
Because of ownership, maybe?
Yes. Seriously, I've been in enough.
Can he fire himself?
No, he's too egotistical for that. I've been in enough organizations to know that quality starts at the top.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Davis is a mess. He's worse than his father, who was also a mess.
Well, look what we witnessed here for 20 plus years.
I know. That's we're the perfect example. Washington's perfect example.
I mean, what Davis did is worse than Dan Snyder's whole ice cream incident back in the day.
It's equally stupid.
Yeah. Food-based punishment, not good.
Yeah, they're both incredibly petty and immature.
Yeah. Which at least Dan was young when he did it. Mark Davis has got to be in his 60s.
Make a reasoned decision based on business and managerial factors. How about that?
Right.
Well,
don't make a damn fortune cookie with a "you're fired" message in it.
Here's Steve. This is a good business decision because Josh McDaniels is a terrible head coach. Like that's the funny part.
Maybe you shouldn't have hired him in the first place.
Yes, you should have made this decision when he drafted Tim Tebow 20 years ago and said, "Oh, this guy's not very smart."
Did he draft Tim Tebow?
Yeah, he was the coach of the Broncos when Tebow was drafted.
Did he really? I'd forgotten about that.
Pretty sure I'm 99.9% sure there.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. But regardless, just a funny thing. And Dave, as you mentioned, this has now really started the Fire Rivera bandwagon.
Yes, it
at
has.
this point,
Yes.
which
Well,
is
you've based your columns, you've basically resigned yourself to it, in your column, your weekly columns. You've been on this bandwagon for a couple of weeks now.
No. No.
Kind
In my
of,
column. No.
implicitly
my
you have.
No. My column. What I said is that if you fire Rivera and then you bring in Jack Del Rio, it's a lateral move. You improve nothing and nothing
But you're
happens.
but my point is you've been talking about that for a couple of weeks. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, no, yeah, I have been, and I've been in agreement with you on the Eric Bieniemy side. It's like,
Mhm.
you're not going to bring him in as a head coach. It's not fair, especially since he hasn't even figured out an identity for his own self yet.
Yeah.
He can't even figure that out. Offensive coordinator. Now you want to be a head coach on top of that.
All I'm
But
saying
no,
is
yeah, no,
you've
yeah,
been
no.
talking
I
about
get
it.
what you're saying. Yeah. I
Yeah.
get what you're saying. Yeah.
I wouldn't
So-
even consider it till like whenever they're mathematically eliminated. That's the only time I would say, well, maybe you want to see what's going on. Just try it.
The new GM is going to bring in all his own guys. All these guys are going to be gone.
Oh, I know.
And that's-
Newsflash.
And that's the one point too that I do agree with is the fact that I know in the off season I had mentioned, well, if they go down the road, we can go up and see what you have, so you see what he has by the end of the year. But you know what, Josh Harris isn't the guy who's going to be evaluating Eric Bieniemy, and you don't have the GM in place to evaluate Eric Bieniemy, so you don't want to force Eric Bieniemy on any other new GM you bring
No,
in.
that's
So you
what
know
I'm
what?
saying.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which
Well, I think we
I'm
all agree there.
fully on board on that.
So it
one,
doesn't
yeah.
really matter, who
Right.
you fire him when it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep.
And also, they're not bringing in Bill Belichick, so everyone can stop talking about
That's
that.
crazy talk. I mean, if one of you two texted me a thing, there's a rumor
I
that
did.
that's
did, yeah.
that's Mike Florio, who's an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, being Mike Florio, that's trading for Bill
Even
Belichick.
by
That's crazy.
Mike Florio standards, it's one of the dumber things I've seen.
And
Right.
also, why
Well-
would you trade for Bill Belichick? How old is he now? How long is he going to continue?
3? Something like
He
that.
wants
Yeah.
to start over with a new
no way.
organization? No.
And also, JP Finley came out and just pretty much all but shut that down anyway.
71. He's 71.
Yeah.
Still, and the other thing is you can't ever go home again. You know, it's like sometimes it works because the situation is perfect. Bill Belichick was not a good coach in Cleveland, success-wise,
Right.
and it works in New England. He's not going to recreate this somewhere
No.
else.
There's also, let's be honest, the history of head coaches who have success in one city and then go to another city and have a ton of success.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You can't go home again. You know,
Once you've won the Super Bowl, I feel like a little bit of that spark goes out once you move on. You know, that drive to be like, I got to get it again. I think that does disappear for people, even guys like him. You know.
And besides, I'm sitting here. It's like I want a GM that's analytically strong, a GM that knows the game, that follows the game, how it's built today. And I want that GM to bring in the next like Sean McVay type of guy, like someone like Ben Johnson right there, the offensive coordinator for the Lions or whatever. Somebody of that mold that fits that new wave of the NFL today that's successful right now. So that's the
I'm with
direction
you.
I want.
yeah.
I want
someone
Alec
from the
Callahan.
McVay coaching tree myself, but that's just me.
I don't know about
need-
names, but I endorse the concept of what
Yeah.
Dave's
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. What we don't need, Bill Belichick should retire and, go spend time with his grandkids and grunt and not talk to them, because that's what he's going to do. Just be like, no. Grandpa, can we play outside?
Yeah.
Throws a hoodie at them. Yeah. All right. So that should wrap up this week's episode.
Yep.
All
We
right,
hope
guys.
you've had fun, kids.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Have fun. I hope everyone is, eating a ton of candy, except for Steve, who's on a diet.
I don't eat candy.
He doesn't eat candy.
It's time
All
to
right, guys.
forge ahead to Thanksgiving.
Yep. My favorite holiday. So
Me too. All right.
we will talk to you all next week.
Take
Well,
it easy.